Welcome back to Summer is Coming, a Game of Thrones LCG podcast. This is episode 6, and I'm here, Tiny Grimes, and I'm with my co-host, Neil, the real deal. Neil,
Yo.
how's your Thronesing been going this week?
My Thrones has been doing okay. It's taken a little bit of a backseat just this week because the Star Wars Armada is having some big preview tournaments this weekend. So I was spending a little more time prepping for that, but I got a few games in.
Nice. I haven't played Armada myself. It looks insane. I'll just say this. It looked hilarious to come by, watch you guys play, and Andrew's giant ship is stuck on an asteroid. That looked pretty hysterical.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the high points of the game. It's a fun game if you're into Star Wars and miniatures and FFG games. Check it out. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're
It's
here
not?
to talk about Game of Thrones 2.0.
The only game that matters, in fact.
Yeah.
Now, Neil, I realize you probably didn't hear this. Probably not. It's coming, Neil.
What?
It is coming out. It'll probably be out next week, is the rumors. I'm hoping that we'll have it by Wednesday next week or on Wednesday next week for game night. That would be amazing. I know I'm excited. Are you excited?
I'm extremely excited. Yeah, it's what we've all been waiting for a while now. So to actually have the physical cards will really be a exciting thing. So how are you planning to sort of celebrate the release of the cards, even though, you're too cool for school and already have two core sets?
The first thing I'm going to do to celebrate is remove my proxies that people can't read. So last
I'm
night I played against somebody and I discarded Take the Black. And he goes,
Yeah.
"Ooh, it's a proxy, so I know it's good. But I have no idea what that card is supposed to be. Could you please inform me?" And he doesn't know the card pool, so I said, "Let's Take the Black." Could you go beyond that? I don't actually know what that card does. Sure. So I'll be very excited. For my own personal use, the proxies are totally fine. It's for everyone else. I know how frustrating it can be to look down at the board and just see these white slips of paper and go, dude, I don't know what's on your board, man. This game is hard enough without being able to actually read what's on the board.
The best are the proxies you've made out of ripped up airplane boarding passes
Those are
that
my
already
favorites. Yeah.
have like printed stuff on them and then you wrote over it. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be celebrating when you get rid of your proxies
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I'll probably keep them around in case I need an extra, play set of something. I might just do it to mess with you. Be like, yeah, no, I brought my proxies back for our game, Neil. It'll be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, you would do that.
I would, yeah. But I think what you more meant was, what are we going to do as a group to celebrate, and what can you do in your meta to help celebrate and get this going on the right foot? Because as we all know, playing Game of Thrones by yourself isn't that fun. You want to have a meta that you've developed. You want to be able to play with people. Now, I've actually made a video called How to Start Your Local Meta, but this is more specific to what can we do with this particular release. What do you think, Neil? What are some ideas you've got buzzing around?
Some ideas I've had buzzing around are one, go back in time, print out some proxies and have, or go to Gen Con and already have some cards and build up the hype. If you haven't been doing that and playing games and getting the hype up already, it's understandable, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say once you get your core sets, definitely have one or two demo decks ready. So if someone walks by and is like, "Oh, is that new game?" You're like, "Of course. Let me show you how to play. Sit down." I've
Make those
also,
decks fun too. Have
yeah,
it. Don't be Barra Neil. Make it like, Knights Watch the Wall versus Lannister. I actually think maybe Lannister versus Stark would be a really good one.
well, in fact, I don't know if you saw this on the website, but FFG can also provide your friendly local gaming store with a whole demo set for Game of Thrones. If you have your retailer reach out to them, they will send you four sets of decks. That's eight total decks, four Lannister, four Stark, as just demo decks
That's
to
hilarious.
teach people.
Okay. Well, there you go. I'm a super genius, Neil. I actually did not know that they came with starter decks. I thought they were just regular League kits. That's amazing. That's a great idea. And those do seem to be the factions coming out of that first book where they're really head to head and people get invested in one of those two factions. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. And mechanically, they're a pretty good match.
Yep.
The other thing I would say is that if you're comfortable with it, I've actually seen in our meta people trying for the first time even and enjoying games of Melee. If you have more than two people who want to give it a try and they don't mind it taking a little longer than a normal game would, throwing together some very casual, maybe single core, the suggested single core Melee decks can be fun because everyone's on a very even footing and you get to have all of the fun backstabbing of Melee while learning Game of Thrones.
See, I disagree with you only because I feel like you're teaching them a different game, right? So it's like if they love Melee, then they may be disappointed when they go to play one-on-one. And if they hate Melee, then it's like you sour them on the game. So my theory is to go the opposite, is to play a game of head-to-head, and then if there's four of you there and say like, oh, there is actually a really fun variant, or we can all play against each other. And then they're like, ooh, that does sound fun. I think that might be a safer way to go. But I do agree. I mean, as much as I detest competitive Melee at Worlds or Gen Con, Melee with friends can be really fun. It can be really time consuming, but it can also be really fun.
Yeah, and I agree that it's probably ideal to start with a game of Joust to just get the rules down, but then if there's a third person sitting around and you want to
good stuff.
Let them join in, then I think that it's a really good way, and I've been surprised at how well new players have taken to 2.0 Melee, and I think that speaks to all of the improvements that they've made in the format with 2.0.
That may be. To be honest, I have not played a game of Melee in 3 years.
Wow. Well, you should definitely give... Hey, that can be how you celebrate 2.0. You can try Melee again.
Gen Con 2012, round 2, I dropped. That was my last game of Melee.
That's a sad story.
Yep, sure is. But what else can you do? I would like to see some early demo day tournament kind of things. For me, I'd rather it was not limited to one core set because I feel like there's so much variance in only one. But then on the flip side, I see the advantage of doing one core because not everyone's going to be like, all right, Game of Thrones is a cool show. Screw it, I'm going all in. But I do like being really clear with people that, listen, you're not playing the game if you only have one core. You're playing like a board game, which is cool. It can be fun, but you're not actually playing Game of Thrones. And I really want to get people in that mindset early so when they experience it and one guy top decks Bob turn one and they don't get anything the whole game, they don't go, oh, this game is stupid. I hate this game. It's dumb.
Yeah, I think that a good way is that if you already have a few strong members in your community who are planning on getting 3 of the core set, then, have a demo tournament, but each of those players will bring 3 full, well-thought-out decks, and so then they're providing for other people and maybe even sitting out the tournament if there's an odd number of people so that you can just help people through it and really get a good, full experience of people learning and playing a bunch of games of Game of Thrones.
I call Baratheon fealty. No. Seriously, though, that's a good idea. And I really like what you said about you may even have to sit out, right? You have to realize that this initial launch period is not about you getting maximum enjoyment out of this. It's about figuring out how to set up a situation for your community to thrive in. And you have to do whatever that takes. Do not crush the new players. If you're playing against a new player, walk them through stuff. If they try to take back something, that is a good thing. They're learning. Don't be like, hey man, you missed that window. That window's gone. Don't do that. Help them along. When they beat you, be very excited. They're not going to beat you a lot of times. This is their one time to be happy about it. Don't be bitter about it. Tell them, hey, you did so great. I'm so happy for you. Don't go, hey, man, if you hadn't done 8 takebacks and I walked you through that, you wouldn't have beat me. Don't do that, okay?
Yeah. So I think that those are some good guidelines for how we're thinking it would be a good way to celebrate and encourage a giant successful release of Game of Thrones 2.0 in the coming days.
Coming days. That is a great statement. So my favorite thing about this is that there's a chance Baratheon Fealty won't be the best deck anymore. I mean, in our meta, it's the best deck because it's the deck I've spent the most time tweaking and working with, and then I tend to bring a lot of decks that other people play. It'll be really exciting to have people who are especially good at other games that aren't clouded by sort of the Game of Thrones 1.0 mindset, to have a fresh entire look at this pool who are, say, good Conquest players or Netrunner players, purposely avoiding saying Star Wars. And then, having them get a shot at this and seeing what they do. Maybe they'll come up with something quite a bit different than how I look at Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's very possible.
All right. So, exciting stuff on the way. I can't wait. I know you can't wait. And
Yeah.
you know what? Here's an admission. I haven't ordered a third core set from anyone yet.
Oh, well, I would suggest that you order it from your friendly local gaming store if you have a regular spot that you go and game.
Yeah.
I think that it's just the kind of right thing to do because you're using their space and it shows them that, hey, this game sells. You need to keep ordering it so that people will keep buying it and grow your meta.
Yeah, it's so important. I know it's really tempting to go on Amazon to save $8 or something. Don't do it. It's really not worth it. You have to think about that you're making an investment, right? You're making an investment in your meta and the store. You want them to reinvest in you. You want this to be a symbiotic relationship where your group doesn't just leech off this store until they finally say, you know what, we've had enough. You really want it to be, they've got your back, you've got theirs, and you're going to grow this together. That is the healthiest way to make this happen.
Completely.
All right, so moving on from that, we're going to have a lot of newer players. Maybe some newer players are going to watch the show. Maybe some veterans will like this topic as well. But Neil, I've got a question for you. When you build your deck, do you have a minimum and a maximum size of 60? The minimum is clearly 60, but is your maximum also 60? Or will you flirt with going over 60?
I personally will occasionally flirt with going over 60. I think that part of this is a 1.0 mindset. When I got into Game of Thrones, initially it was a huge card pool. And so I think that the card pool was big enough that a lot of people were like, yeah, you can go to 62 or 63 cards and be fine because there's so many good cards to fit in your deck. I feel like the core set is well designed, so sometimes I have been floating up to only 2 or 3 cards over 60 just to fit in the extra tech card that I think might help the deck out.
See, if I could reach through this monitor and slap some sense into you, I would do that. I agree with 1.0. Depending on the deck, you could float up. I know the one Worlds I went to, I did make the cut with a 63 card deck. But it was a Targ deck, and those 63 cards were redundant. It was like burn that accomplished slightly different things for different cards in the meta. And so there were, like you said, there were a lot of techie cards in there. And 63 was fine because when I drew a card, it was doing essentially the same thing as the other card. They were either ambush jumper guys or they were burn cards. And so it was fine. But with the core set, I personally don't think there's any reason to go over 60. There is, every deck I've made, I would have been happy at 50. There's just not enough efficient cards in the core set to go past 60, in my opinion. If you are past about 62, you really need to take a step back and say, listen, I need to look at this deck. I need to cut something. Probably, like if you're at about 65, what you do is you go, cut a character, cut a location, cut an attachment / event. Bam! Now you're down to 62. Probably cut 2 more cards.
Yeah.
That's just my theory right now.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I've always been trying to get down to 60. Sometimes it's hard to I feel like I don't quite know what to make the extra 2 cuts, and so I get lazy and just leave 62 cards in. But I think I agree that at this point, 60 cards, and for a while, 60 cards will be the way to go. It just makes all of your draws slightly more efficient. You're less likely to see cards that you don't want at times you don't want them, and it just makes your deck that much more efficient, which oftentimes may not matter, but if you're really trying to make a competitive deck, that extra little edge can put you over the edge.
Yeah, it's even more important if you're building around something. Like if you have a Danny deck, do not go over 60. That's
Yeah.
just a really bad idea. I don't have the math in front of me, but I believe your odds of drawing Danny are 80% worse for every card over 60. I'm pretty sure that's what the math says.
Okay.
You agree with that, Neil?
No, but
That's Tiny Grimes math for you right there.
I also don't have the math to dispute it at
There
this
you go.
moment.
So take it as fact.
So one quick corollary of this is, how have you been feeling about ratios of different card types in your deck? How many characters do you feel like generally is a good number to aim for?
That's a really good question. I generally like to get like 32 would be a minimum. Theoretically, I love going like 36 if I can, just to
Wow.
make sure you're always getting them. But having said that, the Baratheon Fealty deck that I published and said might be the best deck in the meta has 29 characters. So
Yeah.
I'm very uncomfortable with that. But that particular deck doesn't need to have a lot of characters out. It's not reliant on overwhelming the board with characters, and so it can get away with having this very limited number of characters. But there it is, and it also works for that deck because it does a better job of mitigating not drawing characters. Most decks can't do that. So like if I'm playing a murder deck, I want a lot of characters because I want to be able to consistently have out enough guys where I'm pushing through those claims, the extra 5 the extra 5 strength, whatever I have to do to make that happen. So, like if I'm running a Stark deck, 35 is what I shoot for. Lannister probably about 33. So it just kind of depends on what I'm trying to do with the deck. But it's a really good question, and it's difficult because there's so many good cards, especially as we move on. And there's in 1.0, you could have a whole deck of locations and be like, this deck's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. How do I win with this deck? Oh, no, I don't. It's all locations. So it can be challenging.
And do you have any feelings on the other card ratios, like locations and events? How many? I feel like events is the other kind of key one that people have some disagreements about. How many events feels like too many to you?
The bottom line is I try to go as few as I can.
Okay.
So the Baratheon deck has a lot. I think it has maybe as many as 11 or something, which is, to me, pretty high, but they're really strong. And as soon as the card pool increases, there will be less events, or there'll be better events, one of the two. I'll have more efficient characters that I can sub in for some of the slightly less efficient events. The problem is some decks really have great events, and like if you were running a Greyjoy deck and you wanted to do a lot of killing, then you're probably going to have like 2 Put to the Swords, 2 We Do Not Sows, maybe Kraken's Grasp. Like in a deck like that, I probably wouldn't play Risen because, as I've said, I'm a little bit less scared of Military Claim right now, and even though it's a great card, it's just too many events. You need to have you need to have a decent flop. The more events you have, the worse your flop gets. And so it's that really difficult situation of so many events are so good, but most events are situational also, whereas characters are just, boom, I got a dude on the board, handle him.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
All right. I usually do make a lot of sense. Thank you, Neil. All right. So I don't really have anything to say about like we seem to have this weekly thing about where's Baratheon fealty stand right now. I didn't play a game of Baratheon fealty this week, and no one played it against me. I just decided this week I'm taking a break from it. If it's still the best, whatever. I'm trying some other stuff this week.
Yeah, no movement for me on that front either. Yeah.
All right. Well, then let's move on to what I focused on. I played exclusively a Banner of the Watch deck. Banner of the Watch. I played a Night's Watch deck, and I actually net decked this from M Broncos is the list that I net decked. I changed a couple things because that's just how I am. I can never net deck a list just directly. Even from the great John Bruno, he would give me a list and I'd be like, John, I'd really change these 2 cards. And he's like, Tiny, you do whatever you got to do, but I am not changing those 2 cards. And somehow he would win the tournament and I would get second. I don't know what's the deal with that. All right, but so overall, what is your feeling on Night's Watch as a faction right now? Like, how do you feel like where do you feel like they're situated?
Overall, I feel like they're awesome and cool thematically, and I like them a lot. As far as actual mechanics and power, I feel like they're in a very weird spot where they aren't particularly fantastic. I think that they have a lot of really strong, like, non-unique cards and kind of lower cost cards. But a lot of their big, unique, named, splashy characters I don't think are very good at all. So it's a weird balance with them. And I really enjoy using Night's Watch decks. I think that it's very cool and fun, but it's tough to say how good they actually are. Probably not that good.
I feel like Night's Watch is in the weirdest spot where they are a great support house. And what I mean by that is they have great supporting characters, but they are a terrible supporting house because their supporting characters are loyal. So you have like Samwell, who is clearly a support card. Sam is not winning the game for you by himself, but he's amazing. But he's loyal. And so you have the same thing with Messenger Raven. Great card. Not going to win the game. Again, loyal. So I feel like you get in this weird spot with Night's Watch. Like you said, they're big boppers. They're just not that good. Old Bear Mormont, if everything works perfectly, he's great. But it's just not how things normally work. He's probably going to get filthy accusationed or nailed in some way or handled in some way. And then he's just not that good. And for me, the card that is going to change the most is Jon Snow. So right now, I feel like Jon Snow is not good. Because you just don't have enough pressure that you can do with Night's Watch characters. But I feel like in the future, Jon Snow might be amazing as more efficient Bicons start slipping in here and there. Because you know what's going to happen. Over a year, there's going to be maybe 3 or 4 Bicons that get slipped in. And so suddenly, he becomes much more valuable as the actual Night's Watch crew becomes more valuable. So I feel like Night's Watch is in this weird spot where right now they have to have a house support them. And so you need a house that has real strength out of its non-loyal cards. So Lannister works well for that. Greyjoy works pretty well. Baratheon works pretty well. But I don't feel like you can just carry a game solely with Night's Watch yet. But I feel like the future for this faction is incredibly bright because it has these really strong, efficient, useful cards. It is just sort of waiting for that 6 cost, 5 cost, 7 cost, really, really strong card to really move it up a couple notches.
Yeah, I had tried a fealty version of Night's Watch a couple of times, and it wasn't as awful as I thought it would be.
It's not exactly a ringing endorsement, though.
No, I think I played 4 games and it won 2 of them and lost 2 of them. Against, just random decks, not necessarily top decks.
Right.
So who knows what the top decks are. But it was okay. The flip side of doing fealty is, like you said, a lot of their really useful support cards are loyal. So there's a lot of times where you can get a good continuous uses out of fealty to get free messenger ravens and
Yeah.
to be able to fit in just a couple of more good plays to do that. But I think that, yeah, the more competitive way is to banner them, get some other big dudes from other houses to come in and kind of do your dirty work.
Yeah, I agree. What I'm really just baffled by is that the wall is not loyal.
Yeah.
It seems so strange to me. And it's interesting because it means you can use them as a support house just for the wall. And so I have a deck idea already that I think is the best deck in the game, but it's 2 years away, Neil. So
What?
here's the deck. It's Targ Burn plus the wall. So it's like, all right, I burn your stuff, and then I win just by simply sitting here and burning all your stuff. It's going to take a while to get there, but I can almost guarantee you, Neil, something will have to happen. Either the wall will get restricted, the wall will get errated to loyal, or something else is going to happen, because this deck, when it comes around, is going to be bonkers. So mark my words, put it on the board. 2 years from now, maybe 3, I don't know. Targ wall is going to be unbeatable.
Your words are marked, but I don't know. It really depends on what route they go with burn and how much they print of it.
I mean,
but
they already have Dracarys, and it's
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean, who knows? I was trying a Martell deck that bannered to Night's Watch just for the wall so that I could use a lot of the Martell shenanigans where I want to go second and I want to sit and mess with your stuff. And it was a pretty decent deck. I don't know if it was the most competitive thing ever, but it was pretty solid and took some games.
Yeah. I feel like the problem with that kind of deck, and it's the same thing with trying to do the Targ deck now, is that there's not quite enough tools. So it's like you can, if it all comes together, sometimes it'll be great, and you'll get the tools at the right time, and you'll take the icons away or burn the guy you need to, but there's not that redundancy where you know, like, all right, I've got 20 icon removal cards in this deck. I'm going to see a bunch of them. I'm easily going to trigger the wall. It just feels much more dicey. I feel
Yeah.
like for now, the more consistent way would be with Baratheon, to make Baratheon the support house, go primary house, Night's Watch. You get a bunch of draw, and then you get to add the Melisandre package. And so that might be enough. I don't know. I kind of think it's probably still not quite enough, but that's probably the next deck that I'm really excited to try. I'm not going to bring Baratheon Fealty next week if the core's out, because I feel like that's too dirty on week 1 to be like, hey, you're liking Thrones. You're not anymore. This might be a more fun way to do it.
Well, I had that Night's Watch deck built with the Banner of the Stag, but I just didn't get a chance to play it this week.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we'll run them at each other for a nice boring game. We can each get 2 power every turn from our wall. It'd be great.
It'll just depend who draws and plays the wall first.
It really will, won't it? Building season it is.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's go through the set then. We already looked at the 2 biggest guys. Let's take a look at Benjen. Benjen is a really interesting guy in that he's got decent stats, and the way, at least it feels to me, that Night's Watch plays best is to be fairly defensive, where you're able to grab power with the wall and win. And he really helps with that because he can block a couple challenges, you can't stealth him, and then you can kill him for more power when you need it, which is pretty handy.
Yeah, my favorite part of him is the anti-stealth part of his text. I think that that's really good, and being a Bicon is really nice. The interesting thing I've found with Night's Watch is that so many of their smaller characters and the non-uniques that you're playing have no attachments except weapon. That a lot of times I personally have decided to not run really any or very much attachment control, figuring, I'm just not really going to have many targets for Milk of the Poppy for them to use.
Yeah.
So it always ends up going on Benjen.
Yeah.
Because he's one of the few targets in Night's Watch where not only is it possible, but it's pretty damn good.
Yeah. The best thing about Benjin is when he dies, you get 2 power, you shuffle your deck, and then your opponent goes, I'm going to cut that so you didn't put him on top. And then he cuts him right to the top. Thanks for that, Neil. That was great.
Anytime.
All right. Ghost is another interesting one. I really hate monocons for 4. Like, it's just something I'm not happy about, especially when they're only 3 strength. That's not that great.
If it at least was like 4 strength or even 5 strength,
Yeah.
the reaction is very cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that this is a much more interesting melee card than it is a Joust card.
That's an interesting point.
The reaction stops that person from defending for the entire phase.
Yeah.
So then all of your other opponents can pile in on that person who now can't defend with their Bob or Benjin or something.
Yeah, I feel like with the core set meta, there's just not that many great targets for this, right? It's like, okay, maybe they have a Bicon, but it's not. I mean, there's just doesn't feel that useful. But I mean, I guess you can stealth somebody who has an intrigue icon and then lock them out, so it could be useful. It just feels overcosted to me. Probably if it was less, it would probably feel too good.
Yeah,
because 3 would be really strong. Like, there's a big difference between 3 and 4. So I don't know. He's okay, but I'm never excited to play him. There hasn't been one time where I got him. I was like, yes, I got him. It's always like, darn it. I got Ghost. Great. All right. Let's go to maybe the best card. Amon. He is so incredibly strong.
Yeah, he's very good. I like him.
Not sure why I said he was the best. He's clearly not the best, but he's really good. Being able to just have no military claim every single turn, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and having no attachments. There have been so many times where I have a Milk of Poppy in the hand, and I'm like, okay, good. Now I can stop him from...
Yep.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I don't really read cards, but I was actually just like reading over him, and I was like, no attachments? Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Yeah, that was a little bit surprising. Samwell is maybe the reason to run Night's Watch. I mean, he's just really strong.
Wow.
He's super cheap, and he draws.
But he's only 1 strength.
But he's a steward.
Okay.
Just throwing out a straight. He's so good, man. Two costs for insight is really, really strong.
Yeah, I was impressed when you played him to great effect in our games. You also were getting him like turn 1 every game.
Yeah, that's how I cut my deck.
And so, yeah, early game, I think he's definitely very, very strong. I don't know. He's pretty solid.
Yeah. And that is another good point. Like, he's very floppable. You can flop him with 2 other guys, and it can be really strong. You can get a pretty decent board presence out right away. Sir Waymar Royce is one of those guys where I'm just kind of like, okay.
See,
whatever.
This is one of my favorite Night's Watch cards.
Interesting.
Because he's a Bicon.
Okay, sure.
For 3 cost and 3 strength. He just has such a great stat line for Night's Watch. He's a ranger, so he benefits from Benjin. He has the no attachments except for weapon, so he can't get a lot of those negative things. And his interrupt is fine.
I feel like that right there, that summary, was why Night's Watch is not that good right now. That this stat line is really good for a Night's Watch character. It's not bad for other houses either. It's fine. But for Night's Watch, it really stands out. You're right. It's like, oh my goodness, it's a Bicon and 3 strength and only 3 cost. Like, Bastard of Hiding is 2/2 Bicon, and we're not like, oh my goodness, look at the Bastard in Hiding. He's amazing.
Yeah.
So I just feel like he really does encapsulate. This is kind of what's holding them back. And as we see more cards with this stat line and at 4 cost and at 5 cost over the next year, I think Night's Watch is going to steadily move into a position where it may end up being the best house, depending on what the other factions get. But it's got a lot of great tools to grow into.
Yeah.
All right. Old Forest Hunter. Boy, it's hard to get enough cards to discard them for money and feel good about it. This
Yeah.
feels like a new player trap card to me. Like, oh, I really want this 1 gold. No, 2 gold this turn. So I'll discard a card in the plat phase, and then I will discard one in my marshalling phase. Bam, I got 2 gold. I'm in business. What? You killed that guy, and then you knelt the other one. Oh, yeah, and I have no cards left because I discarded him for that gold, and now I lost. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I kind of fell into that trap when I was first building Night's Watch. I was so excited about this guy. I was running like 2 copies of Counting Coppers. Plot that lets you draw
interesting.
3 cards
Wow.
to really try and help the Night's Watch economy via this guy.
Huh.
It's just not worth it.
You know what's really interesting that I actually just noticed for the first time right now? He's loyal.
Yeah.
And you know why I noticed that? Because I was thinking how cool it could be to do some Targaryen shenanigans where you like put a dragon into the discard pile with his ability and then play, Wake the Dragon and bring him back in when you need him.
I think that's from the dead pile.
Is that from the dead pile? Well,
Yeah.
sure. There are some discard shenanigans, and there will be moving forward as well. There just always are. So I think making him loyal was probably smart. It looks really weird out of the core set, but I think this could be a serious combo starter in the future. So I think right now in the core set, he's not good, but you play him because he's Night's Watch and he's cheap, so that's good.
Yeah.
But in the future, he will not get played for this reason. He'll get played as a combo starter in some crazy janky deck that I would never play that Neil will love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Oh, I guess we skipped a card that I didn't even realize existed. Ranging Party.
You didn't realize Ranging Party existed?
I forgot about him. Yeah.
This is to me, this is the reason to play Night's Watch. This is
interesting.
a really, really good character in my opinion.
Yeah, looking at him, he is exactly what that Night's Watch deck needed that I was playing.
You
I
didn't
would-
have Ranging
No,
Party?
I would actually take out 2 Jon Snows. It had 3 Jon Snows, and I was like, this looks terrible, but I don't know how to play this guy's deck, so I'll give it a try. Jon Snow was awful every game. Most games I didn't play him because he was too much. And if I had had Ranging Party instead, it would have been perfect. So I would put 2 in
Party
easy.
is so good. I think he's a 3 of anytime you're playing Night's Watch.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
The 5 strength is so key. He can't be the Martell event doesn't affect him. Consolidation of Power doesn't affect him.
Yeah, it's true. He's a ranger.
He's a ranger. He has no attachments except weapon, which means you can give him Long Claw and give him an extra strength and renown. We've theorized that they're like passing Long Claw around among the entire Ranging Party, depending on the day of the week.
Yeah.
They are good about sharing it, but
That's nice. I disagree. The leader has it always.
A big 6 strength renowned character, like he becomes as good as the uniques from other factions, and you get 3 of it in your deck. It's really, really good.
I agree. Looking at it, I'm just dumbfounded that it wasn't in that deck I was playing. I'm actually kind of angry that I didn't put him in. So that's my bad. That's what you get when you net deck decks. So
Yeah.
I was trying to shortcut it. Bad decision on my part.
Yeah.
It does look like exactly what Night's Watch needs. And actually, I don't think it changes my evaluation of Night's Watch overall because they need more of this kind of card. But this is the kind of card they need. You know, they need 2 more of these at the 5 slot, another one at the 4 slot, another one at the 3 slot, a big bopper at the 7 slot or 6 slot, and boom, they're on their way to being potentially the top house or right in that mix.
Yeah.
And it's an army. And you know there's going to be cool army stuff coming.
And I like that it's also it doesn't get its power from tricks like some of the other armies. So I think that Night's Watch is a lot of times in a good position to be playing fortified position and blanking all of the characters and messing with your opponent because your Ranging Party is still a Ranging Party.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, There's not that many, so there's less critical characters, I would say, in Night's Watch. Like Sam's text, it's great, but if you miss the draw for a turn to turn off Melisandre, Bob, and Stannis, it's probably worth it. Or to turn off Tywin's gold for a turn, that could be critical. They could be playing everything around. I'm going to have this gold boost. Oh my goodness. I'll at least get back with Tyrion. Oh no, I won't. Yeah, so I agree. I think Fortified Position and Night's Watch are a combo made for each other.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was kind of embarrassing. Let's see. Steward at the Wall. We've just got our regular reducer. Always good. Always
The
useful.
interesting thing is this one has an intrigue icon while most of them have power.
Yep. I think we got all the guys.
Nope. You missed 2.
Okay. Well, we already did him, but we'll do him again. Messenger Raven. Awesome.
Nope. You're still missing 2.
That's fine, but we're still doing him. He's awesome.
Okay.
I love looping this guy. More than draw, you have to remember the core set is full of not as good cards. So it's not just draw. So do this every time. Loop him to get through your deck to get to the power cards. Don't be afraid that you have to discard an Old Forest Hunter because you're going to be at 7 and your plot only allows you to have 6. Do it anyway, my friend. Do it.
How do you feel if, say, your opponent comes at you and has a military claim? Would you rather get rid of your Messenger Raven or something like a Reducer or an Old Forest Hunter or, some other 2 or 3 cost?
It really depends on what's happening. And I faced this a lot yesterday, this exact decision where I had the wall out. And so I had to make real decisions. Like, do I get rid of him or do I get rid of, like you said, an Old Forest Hunter who's awful, but he was my only military icon. He was stopping the unopposed. And so there was one time where I ended up killing the Raven when I didn't want to. Another time I had another military guy in hand, so I was able to kill the Old Forest Ranger. Generally, I don't prioritize the Raven as Claim Soak. I feel like there's plenty of Claim Soak in Night's Watch. There's so many cards I don't want in this deck anyway that I would rather keep the Raven around to get to the cards I do want. It's really the bottom line.
Okay.
All right. Who are the 2 we missed? Because I can't find them.
We have Veteran Builder.
Oh, yeah. I see them both now. Yeah, I just didn't scroll down far enough. Veteran Builder is really interesting.
Yeah, I overall like it just because the force strength is pretty huge. It's tough just being a power monocon, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like him at all in a vacuum. Just like if you just told me, hey, you're going to put this in your deck? No, every single time. But in a deck where you can do location shenanigans, then it's kind of cool. But it is sacrifice. So to me, it has to be more than just, I want to stand the wall once. 2 power for a dude, probably not worth it in this economy. Maybe as the game progresses and gold becomes more plentiful. At some point, I'm sure there's going to be some busted location, though, that will be well worth just having him on the board, winning a power challenge, and then sacking him to stand whatever crazy location there is.
Yeah.
That'll be more valuable. Is that where you are with him?
Yeah, that's about where I am with him.
All right. Like right now, I don't put him in decks. It's just not worth it. Yuran, though, I really like. He's really fun. I had him in my hand, though. I think it was against you from turn 1. No, I think it was Tyler. Never once hit a character. I discarded so many cards. He discarded cards. It was so frustrating. His discard pile was like 14 cards after all the events he played. Not a single character in it. Not any, let alone 3 costs or lower. So he is a bit situational, but man, he's a total blowout when he works because he takes reducers. He takes stuff like money poor, whatever they're called, the lenders.
Lender.
He's really good post wildfire. So what you can do is kind of let them spread, let them feel good. They're like, I can sack these 2 chumps because I've got my 3 awesome cards and my 2 chumps. You wildfire, you come out of the wildfire, you're in, you get a bigger board with their dudes. It's really, really cool, except for they go to the dead pile.
Right.
So that's irrelevant.
Yeah, irrelevant. So here's my favorite play that I've done with Yuran so far. Is I had him in hand. and at the end of a turn, I go take the black on my opponent's moneylender. So now I get their moneylender.
Yeah.
Next turn, I flip march to the wall. I march their moneylender and one of their big characters. Then I immediately marshal Yorn to get back the moneylender.
That's pretty nice. That's pretty good. I
Yeah.
will say he's also good for, like, let's say they have coming out of a military claim and they have a duped dragon or something, right? You know, like, okay, they're probably going to kill the dupe of the dragon, and the next turn I can set it up so you can take him with that. So it feels like there's a lot of ways to make it happen, but it doesn't always happen. It's always surprising to me when it doesn't happen, but it can be really good. Boy, I really
Yeah.
wish my wildfire play worked. That sounded so good. I was trying to come up with a way to make it work, but I can't even force it. So we're just going to say it doesn't work. All right, so that's the characters. And again, another monocon. All these monocons that,
Mm-hmm.
if they were bicons, they would be amazing. And this
Oh, yeah.
Night's Watch would be so unbalanced, people would be going bananas. So you know why they have the monocons. It's just frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason they have to be monocons is the wall. So we don't even care right now that it gives you power. Neil, it makes all your Night's Watch guys bigger.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
that's always so huge, and it's very easy for your opponent to forget about, and
Yeah.
it's even in effect if you lose an unopposed challenge, you still get the +1 bonus to all of your Night's Watch dudes.
Yeah. It's really, really cool. Like Dracaris, suddenly you can't burn guys. I had somebody yesterday did something where they did a challenge and they knelt Danny to do the challenge, and then I was able to block because I had the bonus, and Danny was now knelt, and they were like, "Wait, what? What? What is happening here?" And I had to let
Yeah.
him back all the way up and be like, "Okay, you need to really parse out all these bonuses because they're coming from everywhere. Figure out what you want to do, then tell me what you want to do, and we'll go from there." So the bonus is awesome, but what this card really allows you to do is build this weird stalematey deck where you don't actually have to win challenges with this. If you can get I guess it would be 8 turns, so that's unlikely. But we'll say 7 because you'll win a dominance. 7 turns in a dominance, you win the game. There's gonna be a post wildfire situation where you're gonna be able to push through a couple challenges. You'll kill a Benjen for 2 more power. You get a long claw going. It's just so strong. 2 power every single turn. It's overwhelming for your opponent after a while.
Yeah, it can be a very strong location. Of course, comes at a big cost.
It does come at a big cost, and if it didn't have the +1 bonus, I'm not sure it would be worth it. It'd be much more situational. But with that bonus, it really forces your opponent to do things they don't want to do. So for me, when I'm Night's Watch, this is one of those factions where I almost, once this is out, absolutely want to go second every time. Normally,
Yeah.
it's situational, and I'll say usually second. But with this, it's always second because I want them to have to feel like I have to go all in on these attacks just to get one through unopposed, and then that leaves me wide open. So either way, I'm getting the power. If they slip through the attacks, okay, fine. Now I'm going to crush you with my counterattacks. If I have to kneel out everything to stop your attacks and get 2 power, that could be fine too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like it a lot.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. And it not being loyal is so weird. It makes fealty worse. This is like that card that you would desperately want to play with fealty. And it just, every time I see it's not loyal, it always takes me aback.
Yeah.
One of the other reasons why Night's Watch is so good is because Castle Black is good. It's not
Castle
as
Black
good,
is
it's really
good.
strong.
Yeah, especially for 2 cost. 2 cost is a great cost to pay for this, and I think that this location, maybe even more than the wall, will just improve as you get more good Night's Watch characters.
Yeah, it's in a weird spot right now because, like we talked about, you usually want to pair it with something else, and that something else has a lot of your power. And so it's like, okay, I've got Tyrion. I would love to be able to block with him and then stand him back up, or Jaime or something, or Asha, and you just can't do that. You generally have smaller guys out, so then it's like, I'll block with Amon and standing back up, and maybe you still win the challenge, or Sam, just to be able to block a challenge rather than being able to really exploit it. But I think you're right. In the future, I feel like this card is going to be really, really strong. It probably will be better than the wall most of the time because the wall is just so expensive. I think the wall, as we move into the future, the wall will get relegated to wall decks rather than Night's Watch decks, whereas I think Castle Black will just be a staple of all Night's Watch cards. Yeah, exactly. All right, so I think we're ready to move on to the events.
Sure.
They've got some really, really, really cool events. My favorite, a meager contribution.
It's their best event.
Oh my goodness, I call this the ultimate blowout event. It's so amazing. When you see your opponent go, maybe they did summoning season, right? And you see or summoning, I guess it's called now. They go get their guy, and it's Danny. And they've got their 4, and they've got, their reducers, and they're all set. They have exactly 7. And then you just go, I'm going to meager. They look at you like they want to murder you. It's amazing.
Well, that's not super unusual for you.
That's true. But it happens more often with this card.
Yeah. It's a really, really strong card. It's a good thing that it's loyal. It's also frustrating, I find, that it's loyal because you can't fealty reduce it since it's already free.
Yep.
But it's just a really strong card. If you're playing Night's Watch as your main faction, you should definitely run it because it's annoying as anything to your opponent and helps your somewhat limited economy.
Yeah, and especially if you're going second, as you want to do, then you're getting the money on your turn. You're depriving them of playing their Danny, and now you're getting to play your big guy. I think in the future, it's also going to be the backbone of some sort of choke deck. I would think it's just such an amazing choke card. If you can somehow, naval superiority them, and then they're only counting 2 gold now from their resources, and you steal one of those also, and then like, well, what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, they
one
get no turn.
Gold. Yeah, so and then and you can save one, do one every turn. It's just, it feels like this is the card where whenever choke stuff comes out, I'm gonna go right to Night's Watch and go, okay, is there a Night's Watch choke deck yet? No, okay, not yet. I already tried one; it didn't work out very well. I feel like with the Greyjoy guy that kneels out their locations, that seems to me to be the start of the choke deck. These 2 cards working in tandem could be pretty strong. All right. My least favorite for now, Take the Black. This is the most disappointing card in the entirety of the core set for me. Here's why. You have to save back 3 gold, right?
Oh, yeah.
3 gold, and then everyone's playing uniques. There's like 5 non-uniques in the whole game that get played, and they never hit the board when you have Take the Black in your hand. And finally, after 3 games of holding it, the whole game, I left my 3 gold to get the Unsullied. I had 4 other cards to protect it. What happens on the Intrigue? Pluck! Buy Take the Black. Don't get anything because it's only in Dominance. Oh my goodness, this card is just maddeningly frustrating. What do you think, Neil? What has been your take on it so far?
Yeah, it's not very good right now. Once there are more armies and more solid, just neutral filler characters, it'll become a little more useful. It's just very expensive. I mean, as it should be because it's a 2-card swing.
Yeah.
In fealty, it's a little better because it can only cost 2 if you use your fealty reducer, but it's not very good right now. But I actually still like it more than the last Night's Watch event.
I do want to say this, though. I think in the future, it could be amazing. This could actually be a card that defines the meta. If, there's like some awesome cycle of non-uniques that come in that are, pushing the efficiency. Like, that's how Game of Thrones 1.0 was, right? It was like, you're playing a unique guy? That's cool. I have 32 non-uniques and the Viper in my deck. But it's cool that you got, a couple like Bob and Mel and you're trying that out. That's great. So I feel like if we get there, again, this card is going to be really crazy strong. And the fact that it's 3 cost could be good. Hand's Judgment will not ever really be able to cancel it. And so if you're playing fealty and you can get enough gold together, it could be a total blowout card. So I predict good things in the future, but for now, I'm really thinking that I'm cutting it from my decks, actually. Like, I've just gotten to that point where I don't think it's worth playing. I said it was the worst. I have no idea what Sword in the Darkness does. Excuse me a moment while I read it and Neil talks about it.
So I think that at this point, Sword and Darkness is just not good at all. There's not enough sort of surprise single target strength buffs to be able to cover all of your bases. I think that a lot of times Night's Watch will have like really strong in one icon. Your board state will be really strong in one icon, not so good in the other two, just enough to stop unopposed. So your opponent will just do those other ones, and you'll never get to play the Sword in the Darkness.
Yeah, it looks amazing, actually. It looks really strong. You get the buff from the wall. You could, play like Tyrell as your support house and have some buffs in there, and that's a total blowout. They lose all their challenges. The wall will definitely trigger. There is a downside, though, to your opponent not being able to initiate challenges against you. And what is that downside, Neil?
Then they just have a ton of characters to defend if you are going second.
Yeah, so to me, it's not really worth it, right? Like we already talked about, if they're able to push, if they attack with everyone to push through, then you counterattack. If they don't, and then you win with the wall, that's cool. This kind of does that in event form. It just feels unnecessary for the core. Moving forward, where there'll probably be more effects that are based upon this, not winning challenges, that kind of stuff, then I think it could have a place. But I think you're right. I think it's actually worse than Take the Black, which I think is terrible right now.
Yeah, so far I've just found it unplayable at this point.
Yeah, and this is yet another reason why Night's Watch just isn't where it can be in the future. Not only do we not have the character base to be complete, we don't have event slots either. And so you're like, that's okay, I'll just put in more good characters. Oh wait, they don't exist. So it really needs another house to go with it. But I really am looking forward to a future where Night's Watch gets some more powerful stuff and is really, really strong. But there is one more card we didn't talk about. Actually, two. We're not going to talk about the Reducer. There's a Reducer for a location.
No,
but there's also the Long Arm of the Law.
No. Wait for a second. There is not a Reducer for a location.
Oh, you're right. There's not.
That's actually a really key thing to note, and one of the reasons why thematically Night's Watch is, short on funds all the time, and why banners with things like Lannister can make sense, and why they have a meager contribution is because they don't have the same solid economy that the rest of the factions do.
Yeah, so meager replaces that. That's a really great statement. I'm so embarrassed that I said that. Because, it's yet another reason why they really struggle on their own, and having something like the Moneylender is so great because that takes the place of that limited spot. A lot of people are uncomfortable running all 9 limiteds, and actually it would be 12 limiteds, and this allows you to run only 9, and by that I mean the 3 in-house reducers, King's Road, and whatever it is, Sea Road or Rose Road. I don't remember the name. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
But this house, then Moneylender becomes even better. So more and more I'm really liking this idea of Lannister as a way to give them some powerful guys out of house, and then also the Moneylender to shore up those problems. So it'll be interesting to see how Baratheon shores up that, or if it just becomes more variance based of like, well, didn't get any economy this game. That kind of blows.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to the Long Arm of the Law then. The Long Claw. Long Claw is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not that expensive at 2 to give a guy renown. I mean, the only downside, of course, Neil, are most of the powerful characters in Night's Watch guys?
A lot of times if you're bannering, they won't be.
Yeah, I had a situation like this where I had like Jaime, Tyrion, Old Forest Hunter, and I think it was something else. Oh, it was a Reducer, and I had Longclaw in hand. And I was like, what? No, I can't put Longclaw on like the Reducer. I'm gonna kill Old Forest Hunter at some point, but I want to use the Reducer to reduce. I can't put a Longclaw on the freaking Reducer.
Well,
So I didn't. I held it forever and never found a target for it.
I mean, you actually can. That's kind of the beauty of the new way that attachments work now, is that
Yeah.
if you do put Longclaw on like a Reducer and Old Forest Hunter, if they die, great. Longclaw comes back to hand, and you can put it later on your amazing ranging party.
Yeah, the problem with that is, for me, that Longclaw's real ability is the Renown. And so, if you're putting Renown on a guy that's dying, it defeats the purpose of Renown. What it does do, though, is protects it from Intrigue. And that can be really valuable as well. And that happened to me in one game where I just ran out of cards, and it was like, well, I guess I better put Longclaw on something because I'm not going to have any cards left anyway, and this is going to be the card that gets plucked. And so that's a really cool area of attachments, that you can now protect them and wait for that guy you want to put it on.
So that wraps up Night's Watch, I think.
Sure does. So let's do a quick summary of Night's Watch. I would put them pretty low as a only house, trying to like shoehorn them into some fealty thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're probably pretty high up there in power as far as bannering. Like all right, let's see. I think I'd say like Baratheon's 1, Lannister, Greyjoy are in the mix for 2, 3. I might put Night's Watch 4 as of today, like in the same spot as Targ. Maybe they're totally different though. Targ is like all in on one thing, and if it happens, you're just dead no matter what. Whereas Night's Watch will not be like that.
Yeah, I agree. Night's Watch has some really interesting stuff that definitely can work and be strong, but they're not quite consistent enough yet, I don't think.
Yep, I agree. I look forward to a very, very bright future for Night's Watch, unless FFG just sticks to their guns and is like, listen, they get monocons. That's just how they work. They get kind of bad monocons, and there's a reason for it. It just doesn't seem like the FFG way, though. It always seems like they're like, well, if we make another crappy monocon, there is no way it'll ever see play. You know what? Just this one time, we're going to do a Bicon. And then just this one time happens 3 times over a year, and suddenly, bam, Night's Watch has all the cards that they've been looking for.
Yeah, it might happen.
All right. Well, thanks so much for stopping by for this episode of Summer's Coming.
You're gonna try and get away without a card quiz.
Yeah, I almost got there. All right, fine. I bet you could even do a Night's Watch one and stump me. But
maybe. That
would be really funny if you tried that. I really don't think there's a card I can choose that would stump you, is the funny thing. But I'm going to try anyway. Okay, here we go. I got some ideas here, Neil.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Let's see, what wouldn't you know? Boy, that's a tough one. You seem to know every card, just like me. Oops, get rid of that. Alright, I got one.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Your card is Rebuilding. It's a Greyjoy card.
No.
Darn it.
Rebuilding is a plot, so it's neutral. Rebuilding has 5 income, 3 initiative, 1 claim.
Boy, you were so wrong. It's only 3 initiative.
That's what I said.
I mean, it's 5 initiative.
Oh, it's 5 initiative.
Yeah. So
okay.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I believe it's a kingdom plot.
It is a kingdom plot.
And it says, when revealed, you choose 3 cards in your discard pile and shuffle them back into your deck.
That is 100% right. Good job, man. And this really is important. Just knowing the text, especially on plots, knowing the gold an initiative more than anything else, so that when you are making your plot decisions, being able to know initiative on your opponent's plots is absolutely critical. And we've talked about that in other episodes, but I just really encourage you, all the meta plots, there's only about 10 right now, know them all, know all their initiative. Neil, what is the initiative for March to the Wall?
8.
There you go. All right, Neil, what do you got in store for me today?
I think you should tell me about the Wildling Horde.
You know what? I know the Wildling Horde, actually.
Do you?
I don't know everything about him. That's kind of a lie. I do know a lot, though. He is a Wildling army. He is a Bicon military power. He's neutral, of course. I believe he has 5 cost.
Yep.
He's either 5 or 6 strength. I'm gonna go with 5. And then when you kneel your house card, he gets a boost. I'm trying to remember if it's 2 or 3. I think it's 2.
Yeah.
I'm the greatest.
What type of character?
He's Wildling and an army.
Right. A participating Wildling character you boost by 2.
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, so it's not just him. You could hit whoever you want.
Yeah, you could hit any Wildling. The only other things that you missed is it has no attachments and pillage.
I did not remember on pillage. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fun fact.
Yeah, I mean that could be interesting with Greyjoy if you have him and you have Blackwind's crew and you have Yuran. Like you could pillage more stuff. Not sure you're room for him.
Just the idea of a 5 cost, 7 strength Bicon, essentially, if you're not playing fealty, is pretty tempting. So I don't know. Maybe this is another card that fits into the Night's Watch deck because it's, another big Bicon filling up those higher end slots that you don't really have the cards for out of Night's Watch.
I was thinking that as well. The only problem is that it doesn't combo with stuff like the Wall. It's not a Ranger, but I think you're right. I think it probably does go in that deck, again, over Jon Snow. I just don't think Jon Snow right now fits or works. Wildling Horde could be real good. It's going to be real hard to win a challenge against Night's Watch when they got that dude sitting there. And you know what? You could potentially run, instead of take the black, what if you ran put to the sword? Because you've got this giant Wilding guy. You've got Ranging Party with a long claw on him. You know what, Neil?
I can see that.
I'm rubbing my chin, Neil. I got some ideas cooking for next week, Neil.
I look forward to it.
All right. Well, thanks for watching again. We'll be back next week with more Summer is Coming, and I hope you guys have as great a time as we do this week with the cores, with all your friends having them. For you who don't have them, have a great time. The meta is not solved. Let me just say that. I know I've said on a million podcasts, I think Baratheon fealty is the best, blah, blah, blah. Tiny Grimes is an idiot, okay? Don't listen to that guy. Go learn for yourself. Don't feel like, I'm not going to even bother. They already solved the meta. They haven't solved anything, all right? Don't worry about it. Neil, have we solved the meta?
No.
No.
Not even close.
Yeah. Just go have a good time. Play whatever you want to play. If it loses, that's fine. You're going to have to tweak from there. Some other people might have had more time than you to tweak. Don't worry about it. Have a good time, and we'll see you next week on Summer is Coming.